for Christmas, and he would stop by in Illinois to see our family in the Chicago area. And I have a very vivid memory of his sitting down next to me and saying, I have met the most wonderful woman. And she was. And we have in recent years, Bill and Marilyn have arranged for wonderful trips, originally with his mother, my aunt, for whom I'm named. And Marilyn was everything that Bill had said she was, and even more. She was a fantastic daughter-in-law. Betty Dale would call, and Marilyn would immediately say, well, don't let me get Bill to the phone. And Betty Dale would say, but I want to talk to you. So she was a fantastic daughter-in-law. She was a fantastic cousin to me. So I am extremely grateful for having had Marilyn as a very important part of my life.
Well, it all started when Marilyn was invited to a wedding here, not hers yet. I had a very good friend who was a psychiatrist who worked at a mental health center, and he was engaged, and they were going to get married in Montana. They were from originally Florida, and Nell knew Marilyn from Marilyn had friends, long and dear friends, that go back 40, 50 years. It's just she was had many friends, and the cards that we have in here, we have about 50 different sympathy cards from all over the country of people that worked with her and knew her. But one of the persons who knew her was getting married here, and right here. And so she was invited to be maid of honor, and I was best man to Brian. And there was something very special about meeting her and getting to know her. And we started to date, which was not easy because she lived in San Francisco. We would fly back and forth, and finally got engaged and set a wedding date in June of '79. There was some tests though. And one of the tests, Brian and I decided that we would save her some money and would get a U-Haul and bring her stuff up to Montana. And she looked a little askance about the whole thing and said, I know what her thought was, could anything possibly go wrong with this plan? And so she was not going to travel with us. She was off to a workshop in New Orleans. And Brian and I packed up the truck and got the U-Haul and headed up the pass. In the worst storm in 10 years in the Sierra Range. Of course, we were fairly oblivious to that. And the truck broke down. So I had to call Marilyn, who was in New Orleans, and said, we had a little trouble. I said, oh, that's too bad. What happened? The truck broke down. We're going to have to get it repaired. Where are you? We are at Immigrant Gap. There was a long pause on the phone. Where's Immigrant Gap? I said, it's just short of the Donner Party. There was another long pause. I said, I'll call you back after the truck is fixed. And she is a model of patience and tolerance, but it got even more testy. So, while they were fixing the truck, they had just detached the trailer and buried it under a huge pile of snow, and I couldn't even see it. And they handed me a shovel, the truck was fixed, and I started to dig it out. And some local fellas, Daryl and Butch. Daryl and Butch had one of those trucks that was all chained up, and they were just running around helping people out, or robbing people, I didn't know which. But anyway, they came along and they said, we could get you out of that mess and haul their U-Haul over, because our truck wasn't strong enough. We were 2-wheel drive and they were this big 4-wheel drive. And so I said, well, I really appreciate it. I said, our pleasure. We will meet you. Well, I mean, what can I pay you? And they said, buy us a steak dinner and fill up our gas tanks, which I thought was suspicious. So I said, well, I'll follow you. Well, they took off 80 miles an hour. And this is a time when the road was only open for a few hours a day. And so I was behind them for a while, and then they disappeared. And we were going to meet at Lucky Duck's truck stop and eatery. And I said, my entire trip over there, because they disappeared, was, what's Marilyn going to say when I tell her I've lost all of her worldly possessions? Will the relationship last? Well, they were very good. They were right there, ready for their steaks and filling up the gas tank, and we made the trip back. And I called Marilyn and said, everything's fine, everything's good, and we made it back here. And it was a terrible winter that year too here. So we made it back, and she flew in, and we got married in June of that year. And it's been a wonderful experience being with her. She's a wonderful person, and I just enjoyed being with her, whatever we were doing. We had some wonderful travels. She got some wonderful employment situations, as you well know here. Initially at a bank as a manager, and then Civic Center for 6 years, and the Holder Museum for a little bit, and then she freelanced in grant writing, and then eventually the foundation. How long ago was that, the foundation?
Probably 30 years.
30 years. It was with the foundation 30 years. And really helped the board and get money and, to build that facility.
That's an understatement. So
Well, do you have a card right, Cody, to speak to that matter?
well, I just will say that's an understatement. The Foundation for Animals would not be where it is today were it not for Marilyn and her class and her diligence and perseverance. So
She was a great writer and a creator, and also had a wonderful skill with people.
yes.
I think that was really one of the really beautiful aspects of her
And she was
personality.
a taskmaster too. You may
I'll
not
bet.
have known
Oh, I know
that.
all about that. Because one of the things that she wanted was a better house. This was sort of a shack when I bought it.
And this is a far better house.
It's a far better house.
And Bill is much better dressed than he was.
Yeah. I had my little Abner fits, and she didn't approve of that very much. So she helped me get dressed in fancy clothes and but not real fancy, appropriate for Montana, and had a lot to do with designing what we did with this house and taking. Although I did some of the tear out until I got into trouble, and then we hired people to do a lot of the renovations, and so it's been a wonderful place to live, and just enjoyed it. Surrounded by national forest, and she really came to. Even though she had a career in New York, San Francisco, I think some of this will evidence some of that work, and I think it was in her obituary that she wrote, explaining some of the work that she did. But most of her life was here in Helena, and she loved it from the day she was here. At that first wedding that she attended, she thought Helena was just a beautiful place, and she's made some wonderful friends, and I asked her, well, do you miss the life in those large cities? She said, that was part of my life then. I would much rather be right here and live here and have this experience in Montana. This is really a wonderful place to live. And so the other introductions that she had to Montana were, of course, going up to Glacier and Yellowstone and having moose out in the yard, which we had to be careful of. And we had bear in the yard. We even had a mountain lion in the yard a couple of times. And that intimacy with wilderness was a little bit much for her, but she actually got used to it. To get the camera out and get wonderful photos of these animals coming through. We always have deer, and it's just been a wonderful life. And She's a beautiful person and someone I miss terribly and wanted to spend a lot of time with. I always look forward to spending my time with her. And it was too bad. It was about 2 years ago that she was diagnosed with the what looked like some potential cancer, myelodysplasia syndrome. And we even made it to the Mayo Clinic, and it was a pretty serious case. So we at least had some preparatory time for what was happening. We spent even more time together, sharing our thoughts and what we wanted. And I wanted it to be for her and have her way. And she wanted to die at home, and we arranged for that. And she passed away on November 16th, and was at peace. What she did say was, again, it's on the back of the announcements, that she had a wonderful life here. And the only thing she was sad about was that she wished she could be here longer.
Yeah.
So,
We
but
do too.
Pardon?
We do too.
Oh, I know. Yes, Pearl.
You know, I'm gonna go next.
Okay.
And I thought about coming out here and thinking, I'm gonna be so sad. And I am, but it's wonderful to see friends. But when you said, you know, it kind of starts with the first wedding and then on the second, well, preparing for the second wedding, I coordinated the Helena Bridal Fair.
Uh-huh.
So she came, and I had a questionnaire. Of course I had a questionnaire. Marilyn would have had a questionnaire. She probably was one of the 20 people that answered it. Not well answered, but she just answered it. Good suggestions. On the back she said, do you do anything else? And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing. Nobody ever asks me what I do. So I called up, and she was working for Home Federal, the bank.
Home Federal for a while, yeah.
Yes, and I told her, I said, I do budget workshops. I do budget counseling as well. And so she said, well, Home Federal would like you to do something for us. So she worked with me, and I ended up with I said, well, we could use some papers. And she said, oh, of course. I ended up with a pamphlet that big to hand out people who were coming to the Home Federal budget workshop. And I learned so much. First, I learned patience, which is very hard for me. I learned patience. I learned how to be overly nice to people because she was overly nice to people. She put up with my idiosyncrasies, so I learned, oh, maybe I should put up with other people's idiosyncrasies. And she became such a friend. And then you and she showed up when I was in hospital with labor with Josh, who turned out to be a good friend of Justin, who arrived the next month. And it, you know, it just, our families kind of kept going. The boys were friends. Josh stood up with Justin when Justin and Bridget got married, and Justin is Lily's godfather, and I just...
Lily is the best dressed person here.
And so I'll have to say, if anything, I was probably a bigger benefit of knowing Marilyn, because I learned so much, and I was never with her, rain or shine, when I didn't feel better.
Thank you. All right. Any other?
I can jump in there too. Also, pass that around. Well, you know, my mom was one of the nicest and sweetest persons you'll ever meet, and most of my memories revolve around that, and the nicest and sweetest person being my mom is just one of the great privileges. My favorite moments, though, are the more mischievous ones. If you know me, you know I appreciate somebody with a little bit of oppositional defiant disorder. My favorite moment was the beginning of a lot of favorite moments when we took a road trip to California, just me and her. And was I about 12?
Yeah, and you were at the top of the driveway.
Well,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I was around 12, and so yeah, we planned this story to go visit her mom in Sacramento and some cousins, and we're gonna take a long road trip. And Dad, of course, the planner, was all the weeks leading up, the maps and the lectures and how to get lost and what to do if you got lost. Every time my mom would then turn to me, roll her eyes, Dad having forgot that she had traveled the world in the United States many times over before meeting him. And so the day comes, we're leaving, and he's giving another lecture about getting lost and following the map. It's pre-internet, so we printed out the map on this flip thing. And so we drive up, and to get anywhere out of our house, you have to turn left. And so she got up to the driveway, saw him standing in the rearview mirror, looking after us.
Waving.
And she turned to me, smiled, and said, "Watch this." Turned right.
Heading over to Monk Gulch.
And we laughed our heads off about 200 yards down the road, and then flipped around and came slowly driving by with the windows open, waving Dad at the bottom of the driveway.
I was getting my cars out.
So, and there's some other really fun moments on that trip. I won't take up too much time, but yeah, again, the nicest and sweetest woman, but kind of like me, had a lot of different sides to her, and that's one of the things we've really wanted to show here at her celebration. And Dad mentioned it too. A very different life she had, but she loved both of them, and she was very in it when she was in it. When she was in New York, she was living that life, and she was in San Francisco, she was living that life, and when she was here, she loved every minute of it, and they're all very much her, they're very different.
And it evidenced itself by the sympathy cards we got from people that were very moved and sad about her leaving, because they had made fast and good friends in New York and San Francisco and from all over the country, He did spoil our honeymoon.
Oh, he's fine.
We had our.
I came along a little too quick.
A little too quick, yeah. Any other?
Well, Justin is up there. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No,
You
that's
go
okay.
first. No, you go first.
Most of you don't know me. I'm Jim Babcock, and Bill and I are related.
We're brothers.
We're brothers.
Yeah.
And
Newly discovered.
yeah, I still get emotional about that. We met 25 years ago. Discovered that way. That's how we discovered we were brothers, which is another story. But at any rate, Bill and discovered we had an enormous amount in common, and one of those things was married to really incredible women. And so, while Bill and I have built our relationship over 25 years, it was also really important for me that Marilyn was in it. And there's a hole in my family now, and I really miss her. Didn't realize I was so much I miss her.
Yeah.
I said that. At any rate, she's just this really special woman, and she's a whole bunch nicer than Bill is. As Bill would probably say about my wife Sherry, she's a whole bunch nicer than me. So at any rate, I'm sad that Marilyn is no longer with us, but we will remember her.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, Justin, while you're up front, I want you to come to the center. One of my first, Larry and I met Bill and Marilyn when we were in a book club together, when Marilyn was pregnant with you. And what I wanted to say to you is I never heard you cry, ever. We would go to the book club and you'd hear this little peep in the other room, and Marilyn was up and at him. And do you remember that, Bill? Did you ever hear him cry? I never heard him cry.
I heard him insist on some things.
You were pretty fast about getting to him too. But
I walked at 7 months.
Larry and I at the time.
Usually away.
Walked right into the fireplace at 7 months.
We had 4 children at the time, so by the time we had a 4th, crying was, I didn't even hear it, But however, we would look lightning speed. Either Marilyn or Bill would be there, and then we'd come over here. We never ever heard you cry. So I don't think until you were, in grade school, we really got to know you. Anyway, it was wonderful. I'm glad, and I'm like you, Tim. I can't believe she left us, so soon. And
I think a lot of people, she was so youthful.
yeah.
And when she was 20, she looked 15,
Yeah.
A lot of people have said they were just shocked by her age, because she always.
Today is
Oh.
her
10 or
81st birthday.
15. This
Yeah.
is her birthday.
Yeah.
Today's her birthday.
Yeah.
I meant to mention that. The reason we picked
Yeah.
this day, Justin had said, well, what about her birthday?
Yeah.
And that sounded like a wonderful idea. But she would have been 81 today.
And she knew
looked
everything about
68 at the
Justin,
moment.
everything about Justin, which she report to us as you developed and grow older. But the thing I remember most is if we ever have you for dinner, you like vanilla ice cream and chocolate sauce. That's your favorite
Nothing else
dessert.
on it.
That's, and nothing else. That's
I will
what,
send it back.
that's what we have to have for you, right?
That's right.
Anyway, but one thing I do know is that she was crazy about Bill. She was crazy about your dad, and she put up, you know how we all love Bill. And, you know, we know Bill. We know all about Bill. Everybody in this room knows Bill, I think, and we've always teased him over the years, and Marilyn did too. But she always was. I never heard Marilyn say a negative word about anybody, and she was obviously crazy about you and Bill, and you were a part of her life that, you know, she loved Montana, she loved everything here, but you two were center of her life, and she, in her gentle way, you know, was just a loving person. And she taught all of us how to really love unconditionally. And even her message on here telling us not to grieve. But it's one time I'm not gonna pay attention to her. I deserve my grief, right? But she was just a wonderful person, and everybody in this room, I think, knows it. I never heard her say a negative thing about anyone, you know, or even really anything. And I'm sure you lived with her, you might have heard something, but Larry and I never did we, like? You know, and she most of all loved you too. And then Bridget, when you came into her life, where's Bridget?
I'm hiding.
Back there. When you came into her life, she was just delighted to have a daughter. It meant so much to her. I mean, she was kind of like a den mother, you know. And she had these guys in her life, but when Bridget came into her life, you brought her a great gift. And that was wonderful. And then when the two of you moved here, I think that was a tremendous gift, which you might not have known at the time. I mean, you just moved here for your own reasons, but I think a lot of times in life we do things and we find the reason out later. And looking back, I'm so glad you had this time with her, you know, and just, I could talk all afternoon, but I'm mad at her for leaving us. I'll get better. I've made my peace with her, but she was too wonderful, and we lost her too soon. But we have all these memories, and we've got a lifetime of memories to remember her by. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah. Where's the Kleenex box? Oh, right here. I'll pass it to the next
Well,
person.
I want to talk about another part of Marilyn's wonderful, personality. I am Molly. I am Marilyn and Bill's first cousin once removed. And that just tells my mother is really big into genealogy. You heard her speak first. And so, but we're an incredibly close family. So my son is here representing his the 4 siblings, and you know, the fact that second cousins and first cousins twice removed. I mean, we have spent holidays together. We've traveled together. We really have been close, even though we live in Colorado. It's not exactly close by, but when we first came to visit Bill and Marilyn at this house, there were 4 of us: my mom and dad and my husband and I. The next time we came, there were 8 of us. I had 4 children. We had 4 children, and that was before this addition was built over here.
Yeah.
And so that was my mom and dad, my husband, our 4 children, all came here for Thanksgiving. And Marilyn put on, you know, we were here for days. This wasn't just we'll come for dinner. She put us all up. She figured out where we'd all sleep. All the food was figured out. And then we just started coming more regularly. My kids have such fond memories of visiting here. And we would come in the summer and we'd set up our pop-up camper in the backyard. And so there was a little bit more room to spread out then, and we could eat outside, but we also came for several Thanksgivings. And then Bill and Marilyn and Justin, when he was around, would come down and we'd do the next year in Colorado all together. Just on behalf of all of us, she was amazing. I mean, to have this invasion to go from 3 to 11 in the house, and she never blinked, and she never got stressed, and she never ever batted an eye. It just all happened so beautifully. And Bill, you talked about her organizational talents, and that must have been behind that, and that and her really lovely temperament to not get at all, stymied by this regular invasion of our family.
She referred to you as a Denver contingency.
Yes, we are, because we really are. We really,
Encampment.
and we always traveled en masse. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts in the
Well, I'm Cindy Utterback, and I already said a few words, but I'm co-chair of the Foundation for Animals, and I've been around since the very beginning with Kelly Coons and Marilyn and Michael and everybody, and we are figuring out how we're gonna go on without her, but she just was such an amazing woman. Nothing that the foundation has accomplished. I mean, a lot of us here put in a lot of hard work, but Marilyn was the driving force behind all of it, so thank you to you guys for sharing her with us for so many years.
I have something to add to that. I'm Diane. I'm with the Foundation for Animals too, but more than that, I counted her as a friend. She was great to work with, but she was also one of the kindest, wisest, funniest people I've known. And when we had meetings, this is one thing that will become her legend. She brought cookies to every meeting. And if she had not shown up with those, we would have known something was seriously wrong, because they came from Park Avenue Bakery and they were seasonal. She was so thoughtful, so consistent, and dependable beyond comparison. And I agree with what was said. She loved you too. She loved your animals, and I loved it when we were having trouble with her system when she first started to work, and one thing was the cat was walking over the fax machine or something, and it was funny things, sad things, but most of all, like you said, just loving things. And when she came into a room, it was like a spirit settled on it. People forgot to be, angry or nasty, or she was one in, not just one in a million, but past the Kleenex. Yeah. Sorry.
There's one somewhere over there.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. There it is.
No, I'm Diane.
Well, Marilyn said she's done,
I
so I will just say a few words. She was always so welcoming. I would come over here after Bill and I had been pheasant hunting, and we were a little crusty and tired and whatnot, and she was always welcome. She always welcomed us back and got us a soft drink or a glass of water or some food, and she just took care of us. And some days we were pretty tired, so she was just very welcoming to me over the years. And the other thing I'd like to say is that she enjoyed a good conversation. She liked to talk to people and discuss just about anything, which I enjoyed. And we even let Bill get a few words in every now and then. So I'll miss her. I miss her already. And she was one of a kind. Great person.
We should all raise our imaginary glasses to her if you don't have one. Here's to Marilyn, happy birthday.
I am David, and I'm Bill's brother-in-law. And Marilyn is Bill's better half. I was privileged to know Marilyn over 45 years. Friday morning, we came in Thursday night into Helena. I got up early, as I usually do, and went into Bill's office and looked out over the hillside at the trees dressed with snow. This was my first Montana winter trip. It was quiet. Not a creature was stirring, not even a chipmunk. I was with Marilyn then, and it was a special time. I was thinking of all the nice times my family and I spent with Marilyn. I always felt relaxed and warm in her presence. She always wanted me to make poached eggs for her breakfast. We shared them seasoned with conversation. She also enjoyed my occasional dessert. I loved shopping with her. We would visit the shops in Helena. We would stop at the Parrot for ice cream and fudge sauce. She always had a couple of sheets of things to do and places to visit for us. She was quite the host. I remember a very nice trip to Glacier. I really enjoyed when she drove me to Bozeman to catch a flight to Philadelphia. We talked the entire way, and for me, who was somewhat quiet, it was very memorable. As my sister Patty would say, she was easy peasy. I love her. I love her now. And she will be with me always. Thank you.
I'm gonna close us out because I have to I'm recording for people who couldn't be here today, and so if there's anyone else who would like to speak, I just want to make sure that I capture everyone because I actually have to read off of my phone. I'm not as good as speaking extemporaneously, so if there's anyone else who wants to share, I just want to make sure that I capture it as one video.
Thank you, kiddo. Well, I guess I could say a few words. I'm Josh Windsor, Pearl's son, and grew up with Justin. A lot of my core memories are actually out here in this house. And there'd be a lot of times when do some sleepovers out here, and Justin slept late most of the time. And so I'd be up in the morning and having breakfast with Marilyn and Bill, and and talking with them. And there's one thing that I always think about when I think about Marilyn was her laugh. She had a very unique and lovely, wonderful laugh. And always was very kind and open and fun. She was a very fun person to be around. That always had a very welcoming spirit, very kind soul. She'll be missed, but a lot good memories. A lot of good memories.
Marilyn would tell me that, well, Justin, being a night owl and not a morning owl, that Josh, she said, Josh just pops up like toast. And he comes in and we have breakfast together and he tells me so much. And then Justin comes in and then they have another breakfast and then they play and play and play, and even getting together coming home from college, they would go off somewhere and get out the spaceship for what, Star Trek characters? I'm not sure.
Star Wars.
And whatever, and they would be down on the floor, these big guys playing with these little things they played with when they were little boys. And I just thought, the longer you can be a little boy, that's good.
Hi, I'm Josh Miner. I just wanted to add a few words. So I'm Bill and Marilyn's nephew. So to me, Marilyn was Aunt Marilyn, always. So that's always how I referred to her. And I just had so many amazing memories similar to you, being here for summers. And a big part of that was Marilyn, just making me feel very welcome here, and a lot of the planning that went into. I mean, we had many phone calls, text messages. She was always emailing me about, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And she was just always very, very thoughtful. And it just always made me feel welcome being here. And we had so many great times together, really nice meals out in the patio, out by the barbecue. And she just always made it very special. She just always coordinated everything, made sure that everybody was taken care of, and I'll miss her a lot. And it's very special that all of you are here today, and I wish she was here.
I wish you could hear all of this, though I think she would be embarrassed because that's the kind of person she was. I'm Sherry Babcock, and I am sister-in-law to Bill and to Marilyn, and we as Jim said, we met them about 25 years ago, but most of y'all did not know about us because we were a secret. And so when we saw Bill and Marilyn, it was just the four of us. When we first met, Justin and our daughter were both 17, and so they were on their way out of our nests, and so we have a lot of adult memories of the weekend in New York and meeting in Washington and coming out here. And I just wanted to say, I wanted to echo what Carol said about Bridget, because Bridget made everything that you have eaten today, and she has taken care of all of these things, and she's done so quietly in Marilyn's image, I would say, because she did love you so much, and being able to go to your wedding in Arizona was such a special time, and that was a time that to hear how much Marilyn loved Bridget. But I also want to tell you that how much she loved you all, because I felt, I'm looking around this room and I've talked to some of you, I felt already that I knew you because she was such a storyteller. And as others have said, she always said wonderful things about people. And I thought it would be so wonderful to know you all, and now I do. So thank you for that, and thank Marilyn for being Marilyn. I thought we were special. All these stories about how she prepared for visits, and I thought it was just us. So I'm really glad to know that it's Marilyn.
Did anyone else have any words that they wanted to add before I stop the video? Yes. Did you raise your hand, Sweetie? Did you want to share something? Okay.
I don't know that.
Sharing the dress.
It's a beautiful dress.
Really.
Okay.
4 zeros.